This conference will now be recorded.
Ron, you want to start?
You bet. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Ron Lutzenheiser. I'm a geotechnical engineer at GeoCon, and I'm the current president of the Capital Branch. I want to thank everyone for attending our meeting this month. This is our second online meeting, and we've had a couple of great registration turnouts. Probably double to triple what we normally see, so that's fantastic. We're glad to see you all joining us. We're very glad that you decided to join us for this presentation. Given the coronavirus situation, how things are still in flux and so on, we're probably still going to be holding meetings online for at least the near future, probably at least the next meeting or two. We're just kind of evaluating that as we move forward, and we'll definitely keep everybody in the loop on what the plans are regarding that. I do have a quick announcement. As the president of the ASCE Capital Branch, I wanted to let everyone know we are currently looking for nominees for anyone who is interested in being on the Capital Branch board. Elections are coming up next month, and it's a one-year term beginning in October. So if you ever wanted to find a way to give back to the local engineering community and also help keep the Capital Branch moving forward, keeping these presentations going and all the other events and things that we do, this would be a great opportunity for you to do so. So please watch your email for any other another announcement about the upcoming election and how to volunteer either yourself, or if you want to volunteer someone else, you could do that too, I guess. So now on to our presentation. Elizabeth Ramos is a civil engineer at Kjeldsen and works on flood control and water resources projects in Northern and Central California. In her spare time, she enjoys photography, running, and crime podcasts. Elizabeth formerly served as a social media chair for the Capital Branch, and she currently serves as a social media and technology chair for the California, Nevada, and Hawaii Floodplain Management Association. Along with the committee members, Liz helps set outreach goals in coordination with other committees such as FMA's Emerging Professionals, manages the social media content, and is assisting in the redesign of their webpage. So thank you very much, Liz. We appreciate having you.
Thank you, Ron. I'm really happy to be here, and thank you to everybody that's taking the time to attend. I know with working from home, schedules are fluid, so I really appreciate the attendance, and I'm really excited to do this presentation. When I originally signed up to do it, I was really excited, but I think now, beyond just being excited, I think it's important to discuss now with the shift in towards social distancing. Social media now sort of takes on a different form. It's constantly evolving, and so I'm excited. So thank you. I'll go ahead and jump right in. Okay. So like Ron mentioned, I work for Kjeldsen on a variety of flood control, flood emergency response, water resources projects. The content that I will be providing is a combination of studies that I've read, in addition to just my own experience serving as a social media chair for the Floodplain Management Association, FMA, and my time as the social media chair for ASCE. And yes, on my spare time, I like photography. I consider myself a social media enthusiast, curator of true crime podcasts, and just all around fun person. Okay, so our presentation today will sort of take a quick pulse or snapshot of, what social media looks like today within the context of our engineering organizations. So if you are a firm or a professional society that's considering starting or maybe expanding your social media footprint, and you're trying to decide what things should we be considering, is this even the right move for us? You're not alone. And whether or not you decide to move forward, it is something that should definitely be considered. So hopefully the takeaways from today are just kind of the snapshot, give you a little bit of statistics, and give you some considerations to take back with you as you continue to evaluate. So what is social media? And I know that there's the common perception of what we might know it outside of a professional realm. And so I'll go through some quick misconceptions, what it is as a tool and how we can do it, what it can do for us, and why it's important today. So social media today is a tool we can use to just share our organizations outside of meetings, proposals, projects, and face-to-face networking, right? So we have different platforms we can use, and we can share a quick caption with a great photo or a graphic. And it is important. It helps us stay connected. It helps us stay up to date. And I think it can become a more important role in your outreach, in your networking, and building your brand or possibly expanding your brand now that social distancing is part of our culture. So I think the most common thing I've heard in my own circles of professional friends and colleagues is, the social media is not an effective tool for lead generation, right? So our mind tends to go to, social media will not bring me the clients. Traditionally, clients can be repeat business. The right people know who you are. People are not likely going to jump on Facebook and search for engineering services. That's true. That's not a misconception. But that's not the only thing that social media has to offer. There are other benefits that social media can provide. And I will go into a little more depth on those later. I've also heard that social media is unprofessional, that it should maybe just be kept in a personal space and not a professional space. And in my experience, this has been quite false. I think sometimes marketing professional services can be difficult in writing because we don't have like a physical thing maybe that we're selling. So social media gives us like a different way to present or illustrate our services. If you're a professional organization like ASCE, of course, promoting your webinars, your luncheons, your events is a really, really good way to do it, especially if you're in the business of recruiting membership. This one mostly from my parents, but it still applies. Social media is mostly used by teenagers or college students, and that is not necessarily our target audience. And when I say we, I mean engineering organizations or firms, and that's false. So according to Moshin Marine, who has been a frequent contributor to eMarketer, so they take statistics on social media, 2/3 of American adults between the ages of 18 and 40 have social media accounts. And of that group, Facebook leads the way. And Facebook owns Instagram now, so they're spread out. But Facebook itself is still the one with the most active daily users. And I'd also like to point out that the social media accounts have become a really vital part of crisis communication for public agencies. I'm sure we're all aware now. And so when we're not jumping from crisis to crisis, it's a good way to stay up to date to what your city is doing, your county is doing, the Chamber of Commerce. Really helpful. Okay. Social media, another misconception is that social media can be complicated or time-consuming. There's so many platforms. TikTok's the new one that I'm not super familiar with, but my 9-year-old niece is. Too many bells and whistles. And that one is false-ish. So the good thing about social media is that it can be scalable. So if you're at a point in your evaluation, whether you're trying to decide if this is something if you're trying to evaluate whether this would make sense for your organization, there's different platforms and they require, I think, different levels of effort. So it can be very easy and straightforward, like Instagram. We'll go through this a little more, or it can be very complicated and fancy pants. So it's scalable. Okay, so we'll start off with numbers. If we look at the spread of social media users by generation, I don't think we're seeing any groundbreaking numbers here, but clearly 90% of millennials are the highest users, followed by the Gen X and then baby boomers. And this is important to point out because millennials are likely in their somewhere between 6 to 10-ish years into their careers, right? So they're moving into management positions, and studies found that they are now using social media to seek out information, either through, what's this firm doing, or looking up different products like backflow preventers, for example. But the rise in use of social media is increasing. More specifically, the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers conducted a survey of 1,500 engineers of all disciplines, of all backgrounds, and they found that 80% of those engineers use social media every single day. And of that pool, 74% of them say that they would get their leads to read publications from social media posts. I think that's important to hang on to. Certainly in our fields, if we are maybe a state agency that publishes a white paper, it's a good way to promote and get people, get more audience to read or review that paper itself. Or if you're a young engineer in your career and you're doing some research, this could also be a good way to find the more recent studies. The same study found that they saw a 31% increase in use of social media by engineers for professional reasons between the years of 2015 and 2019. That's a pretty significant jump. And I'm sure if we look at 2019 to 2020, as far as networking, we continue to see an increase. So the idea here, what I'm trying to show is that we're seeing a trend in relying more on social media to help get a message out and get a bigger reach. And so with that comes, we want to be strategic about it and maybe do it in a way that can be the most effective way. So as a tool, and this slide is not based on published data, it's just based on my experience and what I've seen. So I think the social media really lets you provide a 360 view of your firm or your organization. And I'll go through a couple of items to help explain that. So, building goodwill. People like to see your organization's culture, right? They like to see that you guys are happy at work. For example, at Kjeldsen, COVID has hit a pause on this, but we used to have Friday breakfast, which everybody loves. And that was something that we would be happy to share. Or if our colleagues got awards, recognitions, or we hire a new employee. Those are things that help kind of keep you connected with clients that, maybe you're in between projects. For professional organizations, certainly promoting webinars, events, luncheons. If you're attending a conference and you want to let people know that you're presenting on a topic, it really helps to have social media as a platform and a megaphone to kind of remind people to come. This can be used as a tool to sort of be like a live brochure, if you will. You can show real-time milestones of your projects, maybe some field photos, really cool drone shots. And I think it's important to point out that it also lets you highlight other projects or other services that your firm or your organization does that maybe this specific audience isn't familiar with. So for example, maybe your firm has traditionally been known as, the groundwater firm or the flood firm, or maybe your organization is known as, you guys do like mid-pack every year. But you also want to show them that, yes, I do those things, but I also do these other projects, and look at all these cool projects. So social media, I think, is a effective way to do that you kind of get to show off all sides of the things, cool things that we're doing. And of course, to stay connected. And not only are we trying to share more of ourselves, but in following our colleagues and our, partner agencies, we also get to learn about them. So if we're noticing that, this agency, wow, they're really interested in water rights. I didn't know that. It helps. What I do too is I like to follow or find specific individuals that I know are maybe authorities within their field. And, with social media, there's so much information and, sifting through it and figuring out what is and isn't maybe important or relevant, or like this is something worth paying attention to. But I can follow and see what, people further in their career, what they post, what they follow, and that kind of helps also guide my thinking or focus my sources of information. So all around, I think it can give you several benefits depending on what your goals are. Okay, so if I've convinced you and you're thinking that social media might be something that you could look into, here are some recommended steps or considerations that you might think about. So the first one would be to set your goals, right? Because social media can be something that could be easy to set up and kind of forget about, or you can think to go 10 different ways. But if we set goals, then it can help focus, what the content that you're posting and the platform that you use. So I think if you're perhaps in the boat where maybe you don't have anything, maybe a good goal would be just to build your platform. I think a really unique advantage that we have within the engineering universe is that we're definitely not out to get the most likes or the most followers or, everyone to use your hashtag. We're just trying to get the right audience, right? The target audience, the right eyeballs to see like, oh, hey, they're working on this project and that project, or, oh, this organization is really involved with this college campus. So building your platform, kind of setting up, who that target audience will be, could be a good first step. Maybe you already have a platform and, maybe you want to focus on recruitment, right? So no secret that social media is certainly a big deal. Millennials, Gen Yers, and if you're looking for interns or young recruits or new membership, social media is often the first place they go just to get a quick, high-level view. So another good way to attract talent. And I have an example of the Department of Water Resources does a really good job on their Instagram account of doing this. Building awareness. So maybe you opened up a new office and you want to, meet your new neighbors. Certainly there are different ways to announce your arrival. But social media, I think, is a very gentle and safe icebreaker that kind of, lets you share that you're there. You can connect with, the local city, the local county, the local chamber of commerce. And then you kind of have an initial connection, and then you can start to see and learn about them and them about you. Certainly right now, building public trust. So this one, very specific to public agencies that are in charge of crisis communication, right? So I think we're seeing, and the counties that I've been seeing have been doing this really well, but having a robust social media outlet to communicate any crisis information has obviously been a huge benefit. And like I mentioned, building your online brochure. Maybe you would like to make sure that all your areas of services or involvement are highlighted. So this could be a good tool to do it through. Okay, so while you're thinking about your goals and you select one, the next question that might come up is, so what platform should I use? There's so many, and there are. But for the engineering industry specifically, I would recommend the three, and this is from my experience. The published content I saw recommended LinkedIn and Facebook only. And some said, Instagram is the next thing that, we might move to. But at least for me in the civil world specifically, or us in the civil world, I think it's sometimes a challenge to make some of our projects exciting in our proposals via paragraphs. So pictures, Instagram gives us, it's a graphic focused platform, gives us a good way to do that. So in order of precedence, I'd say definitely LinkedIn would be the first one that we could start out with. Facebook is a great one. Here we go. LinkedIn would be considered like an extension of your resume, in my opinion. It's great for professional content, publishing white papers. It lets you post PDFs. And so if you are beginning, just to start out your social media presence, I would definitely start with LinkedIn. It's quite easy. There's not a lot of bells and whistles, but it does give you a lot of room to provide more content. The second one would be Facebook. I think Facebook is most effective for professional organizations, specifically because it lets you post events, right? So you can send out calendar events with date, time, location, which is great for webinars, luncheons, etc., and just reminding people that these are going on. I also recommend that Facebook maybe be coupled with LinkedIn as a next step, simply because Facebook does have the highest amount of users. So if you're looking maybe for recruitment, Facebook could be an option too. And I think if you have these two, you're in really, really good shape. But maybe you really want to take it to the next level. Then I would recommend Instagram. And I like Instagram for several reasons. One, it forces us to use short captions. And a lot of us are sometimes in the field or a meeting, and we've all got phones. And if you take a good shot with your phone, you can post it on Instagram, and it's got great filters, so you can get really high quality shots with a nice caption, and you've got a very effective, we worked on this today, and then the next post can be a different project. So as far as maintenance goes, Instagram, I would say, would be the lowest maintenance of the three. Instagram is also more popular among younger users. So again, recruitment, I would say Instagram is really helpful. This is definitely not something you have to do, but I do just want to present it in case someone thinks it might be helpful. So the different platforms let you track all of the activity that's going on your account. And while everyone can see, how many people liked your post, you can also track different things like impressions or engagement. So impressions, I would say, might be like, how many people it reached, on how many people's accounts did it actually show up. And an engagement would be if they're scrolling through and they stop, even for a second, maybe they don't like it or they don't comment, but if they stop and look and read, it indexes it. And that can also help you, depending on what goals you're looking at for recruitment, maybe you could see, oh, people are really interested in this position, maybe not so much on this position, or you could see, well, people really respond well to, our community involvement posts. So I wanted to share that there are some tools built within the platforms that can help you track your progress or track your goals. And I do recommend it, particularly for recruitment. Okay. I wanted to share some best practices. And again, these I put together with on my experience, and I met up with some of our colleagues at different counties that are in charge of their social media posting to see kind of what best practices they use to make sure that they definitely get the highest level of engagement with the general public. And granted, that will likely not be our goal, but I think a lot of the lessons and strategies still apply. So the first one is that consistency is really key. If you have some ad hoc posts, you may lose your audience, which is kind of a maybe, and I'll explain that because of the recent algorithms that Facebook and Instagram have installed. But what I mean with consistent, I mean if we're promoting luncheons, if we're going to do it and people may rely to be reminded via social media, we definitely want to make sure that we're always doing it on the schedule, maybe 2 weeks before and a month before. The quality of the post definitely should be more important than the quantity. It'd be nice if you could post once a month so people know that you're active and engaged. But definitely quality over quantity. It's best not to try and squeeze in filler material. And both Facebook and LinkedIn allow you to schedule posts. So I found definitely that at least for the accounts for ASCE and SMA, noon is by far the most active time, and then 6 p.m. tends to be the next most active time. So either one of those, if you have a busy day, you can auto schedule it to post the next day at noon. This may not super duper apply to us, but I think it's important to keep in mind. So Facebook and Instagram will not show anything you post in order, right? So in the past, if person A posted, then person B posted, you'd see them in that order, and that's not the case anymore. The algorithms that they use prioritize the posts based on the engagements that they get. So if a post gets a higher level of views or stop to read, it'll assign it an index, and the more of those it gets, it'll get prioritized higher. The higher it is prioritized, the more likely it'll actually show up on people's feeds. So again, remembering that, I don't feel like we are out to get the most followers and the most likes and the most views, but something to consider, because we do want to make sure that if we are posting less frequently, that they are seen by our target audience, the right people that we want to maybe make sure get some eyes on our posts. Okay, the second one is branding. So if you are posting maybe some graphics, some announcements, we definitely want to use a consistent style, colors, font for any announcement. And the same goes for your photos, right? If you want to use the same style of photo, if they're all brightly lit so that they look consistent and formal. Generally speaking, less text and more infographics is highly recommended. The same study that I referenced earlier that the IEEE did, even engineers really appreciate, even if they're looking for white papers, that the social media announcement maybe give them just a quick 3 bullet point short text on here's what it is. It is very unlikely within the highest level of users that they will read, beyond a 5-sentence post. So if you can at all use infographics, highly recommended. And I personally use Canva. So Canva is a free, account that you can make, and it provides you with a ton of templates like what you see on the screen. You can take them and, just fill in your information, and the interface is, most akin to PowerPoint, so very easy. And once you find sort of a style that you like and a color palette that you like, I would save that so that, again, if you're building a brand, you want to be recognizable, all your posts sort of follow the same color scheme, fonts, etc. Canva has 2 apps, mobile apps that you can also use, and I use these all the time. Again, if you're in the field and you take a quick photo, you can do it on your phone. You can upload the photo into a Canva template, and it looks really snazzy and fancy pants and professional. So I really, if nothing else, I say give Canva a try. It's free. The next tip is use of high quality photos. So certainly this is likely not possible for everyone to take a fancy camera out to the field with them, but you do have a phone, and you can take some fairly good shots with your phone. But before you post, we just want to remember that we don't want them to appear grainy. Again, this is public facing, right? So you're still portraying a standard of care. And so while content definitely matters, aesthetics matter, I would say almost just as much, if not more, on social media specifically, right? Because you're trying to catch it visually, and you want to make it look really nice. And this is, again, probably another point for less wordy, more graphics, but making sure that our graphics look really sharp and really good. And I do this fairly easily on my phone through like Instagram. Okay, a word of caution, I guess, when you do post on Instagram, I know sometimes the window of capture that it lets you upload, you might need to fiddle with it a little bit, but do make sure that your photos are not cut off. It goes back again to the standard of care and looking professional. So your social media account should be pretty tip-top shape. Again, if it's like a live brochure, it might be something that people reviewing a proposal might go look through. So you want it to be in super tip-top shape. Okay, hashtags. So this, I would say hashtags are maybe a level 2. I wouldn't worry too much about them. I like them mostly so I can track my photos. But if you hashtag a photo, it just allows it to be grouped into a group of any other photo that uses the same hashtag. They'll be grouped together. So I have a really unique one that I made that's really long while on my worldly levy travels. And so through my career, I've been just taking a ton of pictures, putting them on my Instagram with the same hashtag. And when I open up that hashtag, I can go back and I can show this to you guys. I can go back and look through them. So I'll go through my examples now. So this is the Instagram account for the Department of Water Resources. And I think that they are a really good example of just high quality graphics on Instagram, and also how they post recruitment, right? How to start your career with DWR. And you can see that, I mean, this looks very well put together. Their colors are consistent. I think this is a really good example of what Instagram can do, right? Captions are relatively short, but they can draw you in, and you can provide links in here for to take you to maybe the longer content. Good job, DWR. Another one that I think does a really good job is East Bay Regional Park District, and they do this really cool thing where they feature, someone from their park, and they use the same, again, it's a recognizable template, logo, and color palette. And they've got a few more down here. So here's another one and another one. Okay. On Instagram, Facebook, Reclamation District 108, they have some just really top-notch shots. But I think they do a really good job of, they post about once a week. It keeps their landowners engaged. They post the work that they're doing and a lot of their community involvement. And I think this really speaks to or helps maintain just this level of trust with their landowners and their community, and just really helpful. Okay. So switching gears a little bit, at your firm or your organization, the question of the social media policy considerations might come up. So to prepare for this presentation, I asked a couple of local firms in the Sacramento area to see if they'd be comfortable sharing their social media policies with me. And of the ones that I did get back, they generally fell into two categories. The first one was the policy was focused around their individual employee social media guidelines. So maybe your LinkedIn, for example, as an extension of your resume. And it was silent on any guidelines for the official company or organization account. And then the second camp was the opposite, was their guidelines focused solely on what content and aesthetic requirements were required for the official account, but it was silent on any guidelines for individual accounts, which I thought was interesting. And so my general feelers, just I would suggest if you are planning on having a social media platform, definitely consider having a social media policy. If you're a firm, this is recommended that you build this in conjunction with your HR department. But I think that at minimum, whatever you decide works best, fits best for the goals that you're trying to achieve through social media and your company culture or your organization's culture. You should definitely have branding guidelines and some sort of QC procedure, right? So someone to check it just to make sure there's no spelling errors, that there is no aesthetic, weird content thing. And I know that if you are, in this level where it's constantly evolving, you're not alone. I think everyone, given the current COVID situation and how much social media use is kicking up, I think everyone's coming back and evaluating and changing these policies. So ever evolving, but I will provide a link to some samples that we found that local agencies have been using, just to see, you could see sort of the range of policies that are out there, if that's helpful. Okay, so just to sort of summarize, or what I hope you take away, is that social media can be used as a tool for your organization to do several things, right? Definitely not just lead generation. It can help you build your brand, and your platform, get your audience, so your target audience. It can help you stay current. It can help you promote your events, webinars, or your conference presentations. And it can help you recruit some talent or new membership. Just take note that social media use by engineers specifically is increasing with millennials leading the way, and as they move through their careers, it's likely that social media will remain a portion of marketing. If you're considering starting or expanding your social media presence, consider the level of effort. Although it's scalable, you want to consider a social media policy, maybe assign a gatekeeper. And so depending on your goals, you'll want to decide how much of that you want to invest. So, and then again, the social media policy. So really critical that you establish your goals. And I think once you have that, you can select a platform, maybe pick a social media policy that fits those goals, but do include some branding guidelines and QC procedures. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Way to go, Liz.
Open. Any questions?
Yeah. So if everybody could continue to keep your microphones on mute. If you have a question, pop it into the chat box. You sort of touched on an answer that Dave McCreary had, and it has to do with a little bit of policy, but you made mention just recently about a gatekeeper. What kind of gatekeeper would you expect an organization, either like ours or one of the companies we work for, what would that gatekeeper look like? What would their responsibilities be? How do we make sure that we set that up right?
Sure. So again, it depends on your goals. But I think if you look at your maybe your leaders within your sectors, right? So maybe in your firm you have different departments or different areas of service. You know, maybe if there's a leader within that service that's well familiar with projects and the clients, because we do want to get their permission, one, to take a photo of their project. So, you know, that person would be familiar with, yes, this client, it's okay with them for us to use this picture. I know at KSN we have a dedicated marketing department, and so they would be the gatekeeper. Considering resources, I think one of the benefits of social media is that a lot of the drafting and the pictures can be done even by junior engineers, but maybe have, you know, someone at a project management level take a quick look. If we stick to something like with shorter captions, that can be really manageable.
Cool. Now, on the recruiting side of things, one of the questions came in that would essentially say, hey, you know, can you give us, or is there any sort of evidence on how folks respond to identity group focused postings like Engineers Day or Female Engineers Day or those kinds of things, and how it impacts the acquisition of new talent and retention of new talent?
Ooh. So the answer is I don't know, but I can tell you what I think. I think that social media really takes advantage of, you know, like Engineers Day or Women Engineers Day, or, you know, and in those times your posts, you know, really get flooded. You get a lot of different people posting with that same hashtag. So you might get exposure, but you're also getting drowned with a bunch of other postings. So I would recommend not doing it, just from my experience, but I can't back it up with any real data.
Okay, fair enough. And then John just comes in with a question. Thank you, John. That says that he didn't seem to pick up anything about policy regarding the content and who can post for the organization. Is the QC of the supervisor enough?
That will, again, depend on individual organizations and, again, what their goals are. So I think if we stick to the shorter content itself, based on so if your goal is recruitment, and you really want to maybe highlight how great it is to work where you're working, or how great it is to be part of ASCE, it would maybe make sense to have you know, one or two dedicated people to do that with maybe a gatekeeper, a higher level gatekeeper.
Okay. And then one more question as it just came in. This is sort of, if it bleeds, it leads. Christopher wants to know whether or not you could provide an example of a bad posting that was a mistake.
A mistake. Yes. So there's no identifying information on this, but on this one, I don't know that it's necessarily a mistake, or if this is what you mean, but this is a very sweet Happy Mother's Day posting that got cut off. And I won't show it, but I have seen other organizations that will highlight their employees, which I think is a really, really neat thing to do. And maybe on Facebook, the posting will be perfect. But if you use maybe something like Hootsuite, which, you know, you post it once and it posts it across all your platforms, it'll cut off the sides and the top. And so you don't really get to read the content itself. It's cut off. And those are the things you really, really want to be careful of and be very mindful of, that everything on all platforms looks really tip-top shape.
Yeah. Christopher, I can tell you from my own experience, I don't have a copy of it right here, but I have seen engineering posts of project sites where individuals aren't wearing the correct PPE. And those are mistakes, right? You want to be able to catch the excitement of the job, and you're not noticing that there's somebody behind there that doesn't have a hard hat on, isn't wearing their glasses or something like that. And it creates a firestorm of chaos internally, because now all of a sudden you're not just documented, but you're distributing the information for that particular site, and it's not safe like it should be. So that's a good example of something I've seen that was a mistake. All right, we don't seem to have any other questions. Ron, are you still around and you want to wrap this up and put a bow on it?
You bet, Bradley. Thank you very much, and thanks for moderating today.
Sure. Do you want to turn on your camera so people can say hi to you? No.
We'll keep it on the screen that's on there.
Okay.
So, Liz, I just wanted to say thank you again for coming out today and presenting on this topic. We had a great response, and I think you passed along some, really, really good information for everybody to kind of absorb and be able to kind of go through this and maybe make some changes to their own company or organization social media posting. We will be making this presentation available online for reviewing at a later time. So if you want to share this with your coworkers or other people in your organization and so on, you will be able to do so. Liz, we will be sending out a small token of our appreciation for presenting today. Again, thank you.
Thank you.
But that pretty much, thanks. That pretty much concludes our meeting. Our next meeting will be on July 28th, when Adam Killinger from GeoPeer will be discussing ground improvement methods. And that will also be an online meeting. So thanks again for attending. We will be sending out an email with an online survey, and please watch for that and take time to respond if you can. We appreciate all your input regarding the meetings. Thanks again.
Thank you.